Hey folks, this is Kelani. This BlizzCon was a bit special in that we got to see quite a bit further ahead than we usually do whenever we get a glimpse of the future, and that's probably for two very good reasons. The first being that our next patch, patch 8.1, is more or less finished, and there isn't much to talk about there. With the 0.5 patches typically being raid focused with a few cool features thrown into the mix, the dev team would have to start with 8.2 if they wanted to shell out any story content, and that's exactly what they did. But I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to give us as much information as possible right now for a second reason. A lot of players don't seem too happy with the current state of Battle for Azeroth, so giving us a whole bunch of stuff to look forward to might help keep us a little bit more interested for a little bit longer. Either way, we have a lot to go through, so let's have a look at what we can expect from patch 8.1.5. The feature that I'm most excited about in 8.1.5 is the changes to professions. We're not too sure as to the full extent of these changes, but one key part of it is several new profession quests. These quests might end up being reminiscent of the Legion profession quests, but they won't be rewarding you with a new recipe or a new rank up. These quests will allow you to acquire your tools of the trade. It looks like there's going to be a very special item or tool for every profession in patch 8.1.5, or at least for the crafting professions anyway. We've got an early glimpse into the kind of effects the dev team will be playing around with for these tools, and bear in mind that 8.1.5 is still quite a ways away. These tools could end up changing several times before we get our hands on them, but there's no harm in seeing what ideas are floating around. For the blacksmiths, we have the Kazgorian hammer. This is something that was actually found quite a while ago from what I remember, but maybe these tools have been in the works for quite a while now. Either way, this hammer allows a blacksmith to repair their own equipment instantly for free. That's got a 1 hour cooldown attached to it, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem unless you're really having a bad raid night. It has a secondary effect which gives you a chance to apply the indestructible property to any blacksmithing armor you create. That seems like it would be pretty handy, though it would be a lot cooler if we had a lot more gear that we could actually craft. Moving down to the alchemy tool, Solius's Sphere of Transmutation. You can concentrate on the sphere to transmute it into another object for 1 hour. So that could do pretty much anything depending on how crazy the devs want to go with that. Maybe it can only transmute into alchemy related items though, potions or flasks and that kind of thing. The sphere also allows you to interact with various cauldrons throughout Kulturas and Zandalar, which I assume will provide unique buffs or maybe unique materials. For the scribes, we have the Sanguine Featherquill of Lanathel. This one allows you to siphon the blood of your fallen victims to heal yourself. Not a bad deal for anyone grinding out some monsters. I wonder if this will also be usable in instances or whether they will end up having restrictions slapped on them. The quill also allows you to create blood contracts, which could either be rep related or something else entirely. That one is a little ambiguous. For the engineers, we have the Uber Spanner. First and foremost, the spanner will allow you to create Uber constructs, so expect a handful of new bots which have various uses, and using the spanner will summon one of your Uber constructs. If a construct isn't specified, a random one will appear. They could do all sorts with this summon, but with it only being for 20 seconds, I would assume quite a few of the options will be related to combat. A free repair vendor, banker, or anything else that will require a bit of time to interact with wouldn't really be much use if it only stuck around for 20 seconds, and several of those effects are already covered by existing engineering creations. For the enchanters, we have De Winter's Rod of Animation. Consume 1 veiled crystal to animate an inert golem. Potentially, enchanters will have their own little bodyguard pet from the sounds of things at the low price of 1 veiled crystal. This rod also counts as an enchanting rod and will give you a few extra materials when disenchanting. The jewel crafters out there will be using Jewel Hammer's Focus, which allows you to extract one of your socketed gems. Seeing as that doesn't have a cooldown, and I would assume that all of these items will persist after using them, with this item jewel crafters can just pluck out any gem they feel like anytime they wish. That's pretty interesting, and will save them quite a few gold in the long run. You can also use the focus to create a geode of gems at various shrines around the BFA zones, which sounds like a handful of free gems whenever you wander into one of these shrines. For leatherworking, we have the Mallet of Thunderous Skins. Summon a special mount which can only be ridden in Kulturas or Zandalar. I hope that mount is actually special and lets you do a few cool things, otherwise leatherworkers just get to ride around on a mount that might not even be added to your collections. You can also interact with special drums around the BFA zones to get special buffs. And the last item we have to preview is for tailoring. The synchronous thread allows you to mend tears in the fabric of time, which tells us very little about what it actually does, but from the way some of these other tools work, perhaps you will find these tears in time as you explore Kulturas and Zandalar, and repairing them will yield a reward of some kind. Maybe some materials, gold, artifact power, who knows. The next part of this item makes me think you're going to need other old expansion materials to be able to fix the tears in time, or maybe a new special type of cloth. The thread allows you to find cloth displaced in time more often, so this could work a few different ways at this point. That is pretty exciting though. If these tools require new materials, that could open up the profession system again, though I doubt they would introduce new materials this early in the expansion. Hopefully the questlines will be engaging and interesting, with maybe a challenge or two thrown in to keep us on our toes. We'll also be seeing Warlords of Draenor dungeons join the Timewalking crew to give us yet another weekly event to look forward to, and create an even larger gap between each expansion's Timewalking events. I guess the variety is nice, but the time in between events is getting a bit bonkers. Warlords of Draenor Timewalking will allow you to head back into some favourite dungeons like Orcandune, Blood Maw Slag Mines, and the Shadow Moon Burial Grounds. I think Skyreach could be hilarious for the first week of this event, and the Iron Docks is sure to be an interesting one as well. The Everbloom might be one of my least favourite dungeons from our time in Draenor. I wonder how players who skipped over Warlords will find it. I wonder if they'll end up patching all of the various shortcuts that people found in that dungeon too. It looks like the Grimrail dungeon won't be joining us just yet, which is a bit of a pity. I had quite a lot of fun in that one. The tight corridors would fit in perfectly these days too, what with Toldagor and Waycrest always giving us a headache on Sanguine weeks. As always, the Timewalking event will also bring some new goodies to collect. There's going to be 2 new mounts added in, so if you're interested in a Fiery Tusked Elk or an Iron Horde Wolf, keep an eye out for the first Warlords of Draenor Timewalking event. We're also pretty much caught up at this point with Warlords being added into Timewalking. If they want to add in any other expansion, they'll have to start working on some vanilla dungeons. On a completely different note, and something that was pretty unexpected, we will also be seeing 2 old favourite battlegrounds get a makeover. Both Warsong Gulch and Arathi Basin will be revamped entirely. It looks like they'll be keeping the layout and the general feel of each battleground, but replacing pretty much every single asset to make everything look a little less dated. I think they've done a great job from what we've seen so far, and this should definitely help you feel like you're playing a game in 2018, or 2019 soon, whenever one of these battlegrounds actually pops. It always felt a little weird time travelling back to vanilla graphics and environments when Arathi Basin or Warsong Gulch popped. So if you enjoy some battlegrounds, you should be glad to know that a few of them are being made a little prettier. As if remastering Arathi Basin wasn't enough, you'll also have the chance to take the fight to an entire team of smart AI bots in the new Brawl AB Comp Stomp. You know how the enemy AI in Island Expeditions is supposed to be a little bit smarter? Yes, I know they jump all over the place and some of the time that's pretty much all they do, but imagine if you gave that kind of AI the entire spellbook and ability set of a class and spec. An entire Frost Mage arsenal at the fingertips of a bot who's supposed to know how to use it. That could be pretty fun, and hey, if it ends up being a little too easy, at least you get to stomp all over some bots once in a while. It could also prove to be an interesting experience for those players who are a little worried about jumping into PvP. If they can test the waters with some friendly AI enemies, the step up to real players might not be so daunting. If bashing bots in Arathi Basin seems a bit too easy and you'd rather have some form of challenge, you might find the Brawlers Guild to be a little more interesting. They're going to open up their doors once again in patch 815, so expect a whole bunch of new encounters, a revised tier progression, new rewards, and for the first time a story quest for the Brawlers Guild itself. They're putting together a little murder mystery, a typical whodunit for us to solve. Some unlucky chap has turned up dead, and being the glorious hero of pretty much everything at this point, it falls to us to investigate. Get out your magnifying glass and your pipe, we've got a mystery to solve. If you're only interested in the rewards, you can expect a new transmog set to show off how much of a brawler you really are, as well as a new mount. You can finally ride around on Bruce. There's also some quality of life changes, as well as a few fun bits and bobs in 815. Both Stormwind and Orgrimmar will be opening up a portal room, because adding in a new area for a portal or two every expansion does get a little old, and we're running out of room in the Cleft of Shadows. I bet half of the playbase would run around in circles for at least 15 minutes before asking a guard where the portal to Ashran is for either faction, so a portal room makes a lot of sense. We can tidy up the place and we'll never have to guess where a specific portal is ever again. These portal rooms are also going to be built a little bigger than currently necessary, just to make sure we have enough space for the portals of future expansions as well. We'll have none of these random rogue portals ever again. There's also going to be some changes to some holidays which are coming up, with a few new races added into the mix. Children's Week is going to get itself a few new orphans as well. Both the Kulturan and Zandalari will have an orphan added for Children's Week, which when you say it like that seems a bit weird, but they will have their own little quest line, so there should be a few new things for that event this year. There's also 2 new micro-holidays, the Wanderers Festival and Vashir Diving. The Wanderers Festival will celebrate the Great Wandering Turtle, and Vashir Diving is pretty self-explanatory. I hope you're all ready to head back down to one of our favourite zones. There's some talk about a t-shirt day being added in as well, where we'll get to celebrate everything related to t-shirts. That one isn't totally confirmed yet though. Just in case micro-holidays weren't fun enough for you, there's also a new addition to the Dark Moon Fair. I hope you don't get motion sick, because apparently this is a motion sickness simulator. The Dark Moon Fair roller coaster will be open for business in 815. From what little we know, the roller coaster forces you into first-person POV to enjoy, or not enjoy, the true roller coaster experience. I wonder what that will look like in VR. That could be a lot of fun. It's always nice to see new additions to some of the old holidays in the game, and the Dark Moon Fair is no exception. I hope they actually do add more to the fair in the future. It's always a nice little break from the usual cycles when the fair comes to town. Patch 815 will also be the soonest you'll be able to unlock the Kulturan and Zandalari Troll allied races. At this point we have been waiting for quite a while, and even though we don't know the exact specifications of what will be required to unlock them as an allied race, we do know that you will need Exalted with the Proudmoore faction for Alliance and the Zandalari Empire for the Horde. That's obtainable right now, so it might be something to look into if you really want to play these races ASAP in 815. The other requirements are probably going to be related to finishing the new war campaign chapters that will be added in 8.1 and maybe also in 815 itself, so keep at least one character up to date with the war campaigns and you should be well on your way to unlocking these 2 races. And last but certainly by no means least, patch 815 will also be the patch that unlocks the Battle of Desert Allure raid, or at least it probably will. That's how patches worked all throughout Legion, and if the dev team really wants to stick to the same content cycle, I imagine we'll see something very similar with Battle for Azeroth. 8.1 will bring us the story content that leads us up to the raid, while 815 brings us a few additional features and unlocks the raid for real. So we can finally see what happens with King Rastakhan and Buon Samdi, how the Alliance assault on the Horde capital progresses, and what the Horde does in retaliation. A lot of the bosses in this new raid look like they're going to be a lot of fun too, so I'm super excited for the next raid tier. It's also the first time the Horde and Alliance will be facing off against different raid bosses, and we'll also get to swap factions entirely to see how the other side of the story played out, including racial abilities being swapped. I think it's a really interesting way to set up a raid, especially because the faction conflict is actually bubbling over into PvE content for once. I'm pretty excited for patch 8.1 in early December, and I'm happy with what we know we're getting in patch 815. I would imagine 815 will release sometime in February or March, so there's quite a bit of time between now and then. That time could be used to add in a few other features that haven't been talked about yet, so 815 could have all of this and more. We'll just have to wait and see. What do you think from what we've seen so far? What are you most excited about in patch 815? The portal room to make things easier to get around, or maybe the revamped battlegrounds? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.